It's April 1st. And you know what that means? Do you know what that means? It means that you only have 2 months left to make an entry for the Riptors Riz 2 collab. The Dragon Egg video is ready now, so you can, you know, links in the description and stuff. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then links are also there for the collab announcement and the extra details video that I did as well a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, if you don't know about the collab, then look up the collab, and the Dragon Egg video is ready too. So if you haven't made your Dragon Egg, then you can do that now, just for those of you who didn't know. So I just needed to squeeze that in there. I'm sorry I tricked you with the title, but to be fair, it's April Fool's Day, what did you expect? But I do in fact want to talk about the N.Sane trilogy a bit more than I did. I did talk about it in the last WCP, so you can go watch that if you want. To be honest, I haven't really been that interested in the N.Sane trilogy that much. I think it's because it's a remaster of 3 games that I've already played, and I already know how those games pan out, and I can't imagine them being too different other than them looking graphically better. So I'm interested in the differences, really. I'm interested in what they're deciding to change. And in fact, as for those of you who don't know, I'm actually planning on doing a big video about the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy and going through some of the bad things about it and some of the problems that a lot of people tend to overlook. And I'm hoping to get that out sometime over the next month. Hopefully, it shouldn't take too long. So I'm looking forward to that video. I hope you guys are looking forward to that video too, because it's not. I don't think you're going to be expecting it, ultimately. I think that's the best way to describe it. I mean, I know I just told you about it, but that's not what I mean. I mean, you know it's a video about the Crash Bandicoot original trilogy, but you have no idea how I'm going to format that video, how it's going to be put together, what exactly that video entails. But yeah, I do want to talk a bit about the N.Sane trilogy, some of the differences, and one of the things I know that is different, like not the story of Crash 1, story of Crash 2, story of Crash 3, I assume they're keeping those the same. But for example, like the cutscenes, we've seen the introduction cutscene for Crash Bandicoot 1, and you know, it's not a complete shot-for-shot remake. There are some things that are a bit different. There are some things that they chose to do slightly differently. And one big thing about that is the voice actors. They're obviously not having the same voice actors. And I want to go into more detail about the voice. Now, I don't know about this. I don't know what voice actors are actually confirmed for the N.Sane trilogy, other than Lex Lang as Cortex and Maurice LaMarche as N.Brio. I don't know about Jess Harnell as Crash, because Crash doesn't really talk very much at all in Crash 1, 2, and 3. They're probably just going to use the whoa, and maybe he makes a couple extra noises in Crash 1, I think. In fact, maybe I'll just look it up now. I'll look it up as I talk, in fact, because I'm actually trying to download something, so the internet's going to be too slow to actually look up something. I think they're also bringing back Greg Eagles for Aku Aku, who's Grim from the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and that's cool. They brought him back for Skylanders Imaginators, and he was good in that. I really like the idea of having the new voice actors for the old models, because Greg Eagles was introduced as Aku Aku at the same time that they kind of, when they did Crash of the Titans, and they kind of redesigned a lot of the characters. But his voice does suit the old Aku Aku. Okay, voice actors for Crash Bandicoot N.Sane Trilogy. Alright, let's see what it comes up with. But yeah, I'm glad they're bringing Lex Lang back, because Lex Lang is a good Cortex, is really good Cortex. Like a lot of the new voice actors, for like the voice actors in pretty much Crash Tag Team Racing onwards. I mean, I know Lex Lang was Cortex in Twinsanity as well, but like the voice actors, they changed the characters, and they somewhat changed the personalities of the characters, and they're different. But you can't argue that the voice actors are bad. They are really good voice actors, despite the fact that they're playing characters that are slightly different from the ones you may be familiar with. You know, Lex Lang, Maurice LaMarche, all these people, they are good voice actors, and that you've got Maurice LaMarche as N.Brio, and I wasn't even expecting that. I wasn't expecting that at all, because he was only N.Brio in Mind Over Mutant. That version of N.Brio was very different than the old version of N.Brio, because for one thing, he didn't have a stutter of any kind. He didn't have that really high-pitched voice, and he talked very confidently. in Mind of a Mutant. He was almost kind of the opposite personality-wise. But I did really like him in Mind of a Mutant. I really liked the whole thing about that he kind of just snapped, and he was just completely obsessed with getting credit for his own inventions in that game. I really like that aspect of it. And it's annoying that things like that are often overlooked, because people look at Crash of the Titans and people look at Mind of a Mutant and they just form an opinion on it immediately and then don't really look into detail. And I really love some of the things in Crash of the Titans and Mind of a Mutant. The charm and the personality of those games I really love. They're obviously different than the rest of the Crash Bandicoot series, and in some ways they don't quite fit. But I really just love little things like that thing with N.Brio where he's just... Basically all his mind is focused on right now is, I haven't gotten any credit for these inventions that I've made in the past, so now I'm just obsessed with making everyone know that I invented this and I invented that, and I just really like that. But, you know, even though the personality of N.Brio is different, you can't argue that Maurice LaMarche is a bad voice actor. He's a great voice actor. You've probably heard him in other things anyway. He was the Brain in Pinky and the Brain, and I know he's done a number of voices in Futurama. He is just a really good voice actor, and from the stuff I've seen of the introduction cutscene for Crash Bandicoot 1 Remaster, then it looks as though he is going back to the old personality of N.Brio, but still with Maurice LaMarche voicing him, which is kind of interesting. They're using the new voice actor, but they're not using the new personality, which the voice actor was there to give off. They're using the new voice actor, but they're bringing him back to the old personality, which honestly makes sense because it's a remaster. They're obviously, they don't want to change the personalities of the characters they had in Crash 1, 2, and 3, but they're still using the new voice actors, which I really like. I'm going to assume that they're having Debbie Derryberry as Coco, because that would only make sense. She's been in... I think she's voiced Coco in every single Crash Bandicoot game apart from the original trilogy. I think it's from Wrath of Cortex onwards. Wrath of Cortex, Twinsanity, Nitro Kart, Tag Team Racing, Crash of the Titans, Mind of a Mutant. She's voiced Coco in all of those games, which I think makes her the longest running voice actor in the Crash Bandicoot series. But yeah, I'm going to assume that they're bringing her back for Coco. She's a good Coco, and I'm just used to that voice as Coco. Alright, well, while this loads, I'll talk about some of the other voice actors. In fact, I'll go through all the characters and say who I want to be the voices for those characters, and then I'll see if I'm right afterwards. So who else is there in the... N.Gin. Oh, N.Gin. I'm really, really hoping that they get Nolan North back as N.Gin, because Nolan North is a great N.Gin. He's very different from the original trilogy N.Gin, but at the same time, so is N.Brio, and they're bringing Maurice LaMarche back for N.Brio. I can imagine that Nolan North would do a really, really good job of voicing N.Gin in Crash 2 and 3. That would be really, really awesome if they brought him back for that. And N.Gin is without a doubt my favourite character in the Crash Bandicoot series, and I love all the interpretations of N.Gin. But I think the Nolan North N.Gin is probably my favourite. He's one of those characters with one of those voices that just makes it so that every single thing he says is just absolute gold. And, you know, he could talk about anything and it would just instantly be funny coming out of that character and coming out of that voice. And I'm really, really hoping they bring Nolan North back to do the old N.Gin. And they'll do that kind of... I assume they'll do that kind of robotic voice on him again. Because, again, you know, the personalities are quite different. The old N.Gin is kind of more down to earth a bit. The new N.Gin is a bit... He's become kind of like an Igor kind of character. But he's still got his own kind of personality, and I really like that. But failing that, I hope they get Quinton Flynn, who voiced N.Gin in Nitro Kart and Twinsanity. He was a good N.Gin. He was a similar kind of N.Gin as the new N.Gin, not as insane, but he was kind of a good mix between the two N.Gins. I think that's why it was good that he was like N.Gin in the middle. It was kind of a good transition from the N.Gin in the original trilogy, and then the N.Gin in Twinsanity and Nitro Kart was kind of an in-between point, and then that led on to the N.Gin of Tag Team Racing Titans and Mind of a Mutant. So if they don't get Nolan North, then I hope they get Quinton Flynn. Who else is there? I'm trying to think who talks, because there's not actually that many characters that talk in Crash 1, 2, and 3, is there? There's more in Crash 3, isn't there? There's Uka Uka. And I'm not sure about Uka Uka. I'm not sure who they're bringing back for Uka Uka, because He was briefly in Skylanders Imaginators, and he had a new voice. I don't know whose voice it was, but I didn't recognize the voice as being an Uka Uka before. It definitely wasn't John DiMaggio. And I can kind of see why they wouldn't have John DiMaggio back as the old Uka Uka, because the newer Uka Uka is quite different to the old Uka Uka. Like the two Aku Akus, they look different, but they're pretty much the same character, just with a slightly different appearance. But the two Uka Ukas are quite different. Like the old Uka Uka has kind of got that gravelly voice. He's kind of very shouty, whereas the new Uka Uka is kind of more monotone, more sinister-like. So I can kind of see how that voice wouldn't work with the old Uka Uka. So I don't know who they're going to get for the old Uka Uka. I'm interested to see that. And then there's only really a couple other characters. There's Tiny Tiger, and I really hope they don't have. Oh, I forget what his name is. It's Chris something. Chris something who voices Crunch and Tiny Tiger in the newer games. Crash of the Titans. In fact, I think he's only in Crash of the Titans, Tiny Tiger, isn't he? But I definitely hope that's not who voices the old Tiny, because I said the two Uka Ukas were different. The two Tiny Tigers are completely different characters. They're not even really the same species of tiger. Their personalities are completely different. So I definitely hope that they're having a separate voice actor. Maybe even, who is it? I think it's Brendan O'Brien, isn't it, who voices Tiny Tiger in Crash 3? Because he only talks in Crash 3. In Crash 2, he just like roars and does grunts and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know who they're going to get for Tiny Tiger, but I definitely hope it's not Chris. Chris. For some reason, I think it's something beginning with K or M. Chris. Is it Chris Williams? I think it might be Chris Williams, actually. Who else is there? There's Entropy, and I assume they're going to get Michael N.Sane for Entropy, because he's pretty much voiced Entropy in every single game that Entropy's been in. Or is that... No, there's one instance where he wasn't. Oh yeah, in Wrath of Cortex he was voiced by someone else, I think, but it was voiced by Michael N.Sane in Crash 3, Crash Nitro Kart, and Crash Twinsanity. I think those are the only games he's been in. But yeah, I hope they're going to get Michael N.Sane, because he's the only Entropy voice that you can really think, really. If I think of Entropy, I do not think of the Wrath of Cortex Entropy with that voice. I'm hoping they get Michael N.Sane. And then there's Dingodile, and I forget who voices Dingodile. I'm usually really good with voice actors, but I can't remember who plays Dingodile. I know he's had a few different voice actors, but I can't remember a name of a single one of them. But they all sound pretty much the same. They're all that kind of just gravelly, stereotypical Australian accent, which it definitely suits Dingodile. So ultimately, it doesn't really matter as long as they can give off that kind of that low gravelly voice, also while doing that very strong Australian accent. And I think that's it really in Crash 1, 2, and 3. I think those are the only voices. Because none of the other boss characters talk. Well, there's Ripperoo, but I mean, for Ripperoo, I'm assuming they're just going to use the same laugh, because they have to use that laugh. They can't make a new laugh. That Ripperoo laugh is so incredibly iconic. You can't change that at all. Just like Crash's whoa, you can't replace that with something else. It's got to be exactly the same. All right, yeah, I think that's it. So there's Crash. I don't know about Crash. We know who's voicing Cortex, and there's N.Brio, and there's Aku Aku, and Coco, N.Gin, Uka Uka, Entropy, Tiny, and Dingodile. I think they're the only characters that had voices in Crash 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to look at this webpage and see who's actually voiced. Oh, we've actually got a load of images here. That's interesting. I haven't even seen a lot of these. I really should look into what has been revealed actually for a lot of the N.Sane trilogy, because I really have not seen much. So I'm interested to see who's voicing all these characters. They look pretty good though. I gotta say the designs look very good. I do like the designs of all these characters. Although a lot of them I did kind of prefer their designs in in Imaginators, to be honest. I quite like the Uka Uka... No, I quite like the Aku Aku design in Imaginators, but it seems as though they're kind of going back to the very simplistic design of Crash 1, 2 and 3, although it was mostly really Crash 3, because in Crash 1 and 2 he's just a mask that doesn't move. But yeah, they're basically going back to the old models and just improving the graphics wherever they can, which is fine. Alright, let's see who they got. They got, oh, Crash Bandicoot is Jess Harnell then. They got, okay, Dr. Cortex, Lex Lang, oh, they do have Greg Eagles as Aku Aku, that makes sense. Oh yeah, they got Debbie Derryberry as Coco. Oh, that's a shame. They've got Corey Burton as N.Gin. Oh, that is a shame. That is a shame. Oh, I was hoping they had they could at least have Quinton Flynn. No, but they got Corey Burton. I think Corey Burton is the one who voiced him in Wrath of Cortex. I think he also voiced Entropy in Wrath of Cortex. He wasn't the best. He really wasn't that good, to be honest, in Wrath of Cortex. So that's kind of a shame. Who else they got? Tiny Tiger. Oh yeah, I forgot John DiMaggio. Well, I know I said John DiMaggio, but I was talking about Uka Uka. I forgot John DiMaggio actually voiced Tiny Tiger in Nitro Kart. Oh, no, that's good. That's good. He was a good Tiny Tiger in Crash Nitro Kart. That's actually good. I'm happy about that. I'd forgotten about that. But yeah, John DiMaggio as Tiny Tiger. That's good. I do like that. I do like his voice in Nitro Kart. Oh, and they've also got John DiMaggio as Uka Uka too. Oh, I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. I wasn't expecting them to do that. So yeah, that's good. I'm happy about that. Dingdodal Fred Tetaciore, something like that. I don't know. I don't recognize that name. So that's a new voice actor for what I can see. And oh, they got Corey Burton for Entropy again. That's a shame. I was hoping for Michael N.Sane. Come on. Can you not get Michael N.Sane? Oh, that's a shame. That is a shame. Ripperoo Jess Harnell. That's interesting. Because from what I can tell, Ripperoo doesn't talk at all in Crash 1, 2 or 3. He's not even in Crash 3. I know he technically talks in Crash Team Racing, but that's just the laugh with subtitles. I don't really know if he has a voice. I hope they still do use the laugh though. Because they've got Jess Harnell as Ripperoo. That's interesting. And yeah, Maurice LaMarche as N.Brio. Dwight Schultz as Papu Papu. Oh, that's interesting. You see, these are characters that I didn't even think of because they didn't talk in the games. They didn't talk. They just kind of had. Some of them just had little noises. They didn't talk at all. So I didn't even consider them to have new voice actors. But Dwight Schultz, I do recognize that name. I think that may have been his voice actor in Twinsanity. I do recognize the name Dwight Schultz. Oh, they got Jess Harnell as Pinstripe too. And they got Fred, can't pronounce your name, as Komodo Mo, and Komodo Joe. It doesn't have any name there, so maybe Komodo Joe doesn't talk. But then again, I didn't think Komodo Mo talked either. And they got Debbie Derryberry as Torna as well. Okay, makes sense. And they got Fred, Mr. Tataciori as Koala Kong. Again, a character who didn't talk, but I guess is now going to talk. And they got Maurice LaMarche to do the voices of some of the lab assistants. That makes sense. He did voices of a few other enemies when he was in Mind Over Mutant, so I suppose it makes sense to have him do the voice of miscellaneous enemies. And then Corey Burton as Cortex as a baby. Oh, that's a shame. That's a wasted opportunity. They could have easily had Debbie Derryberry do the voice of Cortex again, because I think Debbie Derryberry did the voice of Cortex in Twinsanity when he was a child. So they could have easily just got her to do the voice of Cortex when he's a baby at the 100% ending of Crash 3. Let's look at some of the comments on this page. Shame they couldn't bring back Michael N.Sane as Tropy, yeah. Too bad, wish for some of the old Trilogy to be back. Then again, some may bring their own, yeah. How long Corey Burton hasn't voiced Dr. N.Gin? 16 years, somebody's said. Yeah, I would have preferred Nolan North as N.Gin, or at the very least Quentin Flynn. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. But I'll give Corey Burton the benefit of the doubt for now. Yeah, I am kind of disappointed about that, and for Entropy as well. It's a shame they could, if they could have got Nolan North or Quentin Flynn, I would have been happy. I agree with the masses about the lack of Nolan North as N.Gin. He was, in my opinion, one of the standout performances in both Titans games. I'm actually glad to see Burton back as Entropy. I think under the right direction, he'd make a fantastic trophy, and I feel this will be a great display of that. Oh, yeah. I suppose he wasn't a bad Entropy. I mean, he only really had like 1 or 2 lines in Wrath of Cortex. He did a good job as Entropy. I just didn't like him as N.Gin. I just didn't think that he could pull off the voice of N.Gin very well. Fred as Dingodile is definitely the most interesting choice here. I'd love to see more roles like this that didn't really show off his range. That'd really show off his range. I don't know who this Fred person is. I've never heard that name. I'm gonna have to look him up after this. DiMaggio is another choice I'm glad is returning, mainly for his Uka Uka. I actually think he had the most well-rounded performance for the character. The rest I feel is a great choice, just gives me yet more reasons to get this collection. CTR had my favourite voices for each character, and I wish they'd used them instead. Torna's voice will most likely be gasps and sighs, but if she did get a speaking role, I'd really want her to get her own voice actress separate from Coco. Yeah, I guess that. Really hope Corey's N.Gin will be better around this time. DiMaggio is back as Tiny, so is Greg Eels as Aku Aku. Amazing, I'm extremely hyped for this game, to be honest. This is interesting hearing other people's opinions on this stuff. For Corey's Entropy, I hope he uses a more arrogant version of his voice this time. Not that his Wrath of Cortex voice was necessarily bad, it just didn't sound much like Michael N.Sane and ironically sounded a little like Maurice LaMarche. It did actually, now that I think about it. For John DiMaggio's Uka Uka, I hope he uses more darker and powerful voice like his Galactus this time. It'll be interesting to see, you know, I didn't even think of that. Because for N.Brio I said, like, I think it's interesting that they're bringing Maurice LaMarche back to do the old version of N.Brio, because the old N.Brio and the new N.Brio are quite different. But then when I talked about Uka Uka, I just kind of dismissed that, and I just sort of thought, well, that voice is for the new Uka Uka, it doesn't suit the old Uka Uka. But, you know, they're voice actors, they don't stick to one type of voice, do they? John DiMaggio could very easily do an Uka Uka voice that is like Clancy Brown's old Uka Uka voice, or maybe some sort of a blend between the two would be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how Fred will handle the Australian accent for Dingodile, but he might just surprise us and show some real versatility. I don't know who this person is, I've got to look them up. It's funny that he'll be voicing Komodo Mo, since Mo's laugh and grunt sounded a little Tadasiori-like. I don't know who this person is. To be honest, I have mixed thoughts on Debbie returning as Coco. While she has had a good history with the character, especially since she's voiced her the longest, yeah, I thought I was right about that. I felt her latest voice slipped in and out of her Jimmy Neutron voice, which became distracting. But under better direction, she might just get better again. Yeah, I can see that. I was actually hoping that they'd give Hynden Walsh another shot. Is that the person who voiced Coco in the original games? Or in Crash 2, I should say, because she didn't talk in Crash 2, did she? I think she then had a different voice actress in CTR. I forget. I feel as though I'm well versed in voice actors, but a lot of the times I just forget people. I'm a little disappointed that they haven't got Nolan back to voice N.Gin. Sure, the N.Gin he voiced wasn't very cool-headed like the one from the original games, but with LaMarche and DiMaggio set to play traditional versions of the characters they're voicing, I thought it would make sense for Nolan to return. He might just be too busy though. Yeah, that is a real shame. I wasn't expecting either of those. I wasn't expecting Maurice LaMarche as N.Brio, and I was surprised at that. I wasn't expecting John DiMaggio as Uka Uka, and I was surprised at that. But I was hoping for Nolan North as N.Gin, and they didn't deliver on that. It's a shame. Debbie's late 2000s Coco voice was more Jimmy Neutron-esque, which I didn't mind, but the character has aged since Wrath of Cortex. Something that I saw written somewhere that I thought was kind of interesting, that Coco is like the only character who seems to have aged over the course of the Crash Bandicoot series, because if you look at her in Crash 2 and then look at her in Crash Mind of a Mutant, she seems a lot older in Mind of a Mutant. It seems like she's aging over the course of the series, which none of the other characters seem to do, which is kind of strange. I'm in agreement with the lack of Nolan North. I don't care what people say about the writing in Radical's games. N.Gin was hilarious with North. Corey Burton will do fine now that he'll have more dialogue to work with. Yeah, I suppose. I think he only really had like that one line in Wrath of Cortex, really, where he said something like he was talking to Uka Uka and he was like, Crash always finds a way to defeat us. Maybe he's just too good for us. And that's pretty much all he said in the entire game. So that's probably why that voice didn't sell me on it very much. But I'm sure it'll do fine. I do like that we're seeing characters that have never been given a voice or a whole lot of material get new voices. But I'm a little disappointed that it's pretty much just multicasting here, exception of Lex, Greg, and Dwight. I just wish there was a couple of other names in here too. Yeah, I get that. And yeah, I do like that, because when I was talking about the voices at the start of this, I just went through all the people who talked in Crash 1, 2, and 3, and it's a very small list when you think about it. I didn't even consider the fact that they might actually just give lines to characters who never even really talked before, like the Komodo brothers. They didn't say a single word, or Pinstripe, or Torna. None of these characters said anything. It seems a bit pointless and needlessly spendy to dedicate individual voice actors to characters who barely had any lines to begin with. My bet is that the non-speaking characters will get a few grunts or the like, just to spruce things up a bit. Besides, multicasting's a pretty economic use of versatile voice talent, so I'm always behind it. Yeah, I get that. I don't have a problem with multiple voice actors. No, I don't have a problem with voice actors voicing multiple characters, as long as they don't sound too similar. There's nothing wrong with that. Really disappointed that they didn't bring North back as N.Gin, but I'm interested how Tatasiori. I'm going to say Tatasiori. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but I don't know how to pronounce this name. Tatasiori's take on Dingodile is going to go, and I can certainly picture Harnell as Pinstripe, even if he didn't have any real lines in his game. Yeah, I get that. Me too. Corey Burton as N.Gin doesn't sit right with me. Makes him sound a little weak, simpering lackey in comparison to all the other N.Gin voices. I'm willing to pin that more on direction and writing than anything, since that's pretty much all Corey had to work with at the time. At the very least, he should be able to give a better performance this go-round. Besides, I suppose I kind of get where they're coming from with this decision. Since this trilogy is meant to be a recreation of the series' earliest installments, they're playing it particularly safe with the casting, and while North is certainly funny as N.Gin, he's not very representative of how the character was back then. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, you make a good point. I think if this was a new sequel instead of a remaster, maybe we would have gotten Nolan back as N.Gin, though I'm willing to see how Corey Burton will sound under better direction. If that was the logic they're going under, then shouldn't they have passed over LaMarche for a voice actor better fitting of that era's version of Brio? I don't see how LaMarche is too deviant from Brio's general characterization, so I guess they figured out it was a safe bet to stick him with it. Fair enough, I will say that it's interesting to see him play a more classic N.Brio after the complete 180 his personality took in Mind of Mutant, which was honestly one of the few personality changes from the Titans game that I thought worked well. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. His character just completely flipped in Mind of a Mutant, but at the same time, it was really good. Eagerly waits to see whether or not Nolan North will reprise as N.Gin. If most of the cast get from Twinsanity to Mind of a Mutant is coming back, Nolan as N.Gin is very likely as well. Hopefully we'll get another cast announcement in the next few weeks. Oh, did you say that before they announced who was going to be N.Gin? I hope in some way, shape or form they bring back Brendan O'Brien, even if he's not voicing N.Gin or Cortex anymore. Heck, I'd be glad if they got him back as Tiny Tiger. It'd be nice if he voiced someone, but based on recent developments, most of the characters will likely be voiced by their most recent voice actor. Tiny might be the exception, given his heavy retooling in Crash of the Titans, but there's still John DiMaggio. Yeah, you must have written this before they announced all these. If Pinstripe gets any actual lines in the remakes, I would love if Brendan reprised. Considering the trilogy is a remaster of the first 3 games, it's going to be the first version of Tiny Tiger, the hulking beast that hates the Bandicoots, in contrast to the timid, apologetic version in Crash of the Titans. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Vicarious Visions will most likely consider the most recent rendition of classic Tiny as first priority, so the remakes will probably use DiMaggio. I'd love to hear him as N.Gin again, honestly, but that's not going to happen, sadly. I wonder if Greg Eagles is Aku Aku again, yeah. Considering he reprised for Skylanders, that's a very safe bet. I'm going to look up Fred Tatasiori, because everybody seems to know who this person is. I feel like an idiot because I don't. Who is he? Justice League Action. Skylanders. Oh, he's in Skylanders Academy. Okay. He's in Ben 10. Lego Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures. The Powerpuff Girls. He's in Powerpuff Girls. The new version of Powerpuff Girls. He's in the Mr. Peabody and Sherman Show. He's in Be Cool Scooby-Doo. Wander Over Yonder. I've never seen that. He's in Phineas and Ferb. Mission Marvel. Hulk and the Agents of Smash. Avengers Assemble. Sanjay and Craig. Monsters vs. Aliens. Sophia the First. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Robot and Monster. Gravity Falls. Ultimate Spider-Man. Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness. God, he's in so many things. Big Time Rush. The Avengers, Planet Sheen, Lego Hero Factory, Regular Show, Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc., Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, Generator Rex, Adventure Time, Penguins of Madagascar, Star Wars The Clone Wars, Back at the Barnyard, Chowder, Robot Chicken, Avatar, American Dad, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, What's New Scooby-Doo, Invader Zim. Jeez, he's in loads of things. He's in that Scooby-Doo John Cena thing. He's in loads. Kung Fu Panda 2, Alpha and Omega, Garfield's Pet Force, Madagascar 2, Incredible Hulk, Enchanted, Charlotte's Web, Barnyard, and Crash N.Sane Trilogy, there he is. Overwatch, Ratchet and Clank. God, he's in loads. Wow. I'm surprised I've never heard of this person before. Rise of the Guardians, Avengers, Battle for Earth, Transformers, Kingdom Hearts, Madagascar 3, the video game. I'm getting the general impression that he plays Hulk in a number of different things, so I'm assuming he is basically the main Hulk, unless I'm completely wrong on that. He seems to voice Shifu in a lot of Kung Fu Panda things that aren't the official Kung Fu Panda films. God, I don't know how I've never heard of this person before. He's in Scooby-Doo Who's Watching Who. I've got that game. I've got that game. I might make a video about that game. He's in the SpongeBob movie video game. Wow, how have I never heard of this person? Seriously, how do I not know who Fred Tatasciore is? And is that even how you pronounce his name? I don't know. But anyway, that was interesting. I've learned a lot about who the voice actors are going to be. Again, it's a shame they're not having Nolan North as N.Gin, but I'm glad I'm happy with a lot of them. I'm happy with the Cortex, N.Brio, Aku Aku, Crash, Coco, Uka Uka, and Tiny. That's good. They're both John DiMaggio. That's interesting. That's kind of interesting because John DiMaggio voices Tiny Tiger in Crash Nitro Kart. He then went on to voice Uka Uka in Crash of the Titans and Mind Over Mutant separately. So he voiced two characters in the same series, but they were like in separate parts of the series. Like they never crossed over. But for the N.Sane trilogy, he's voicing both Tiny Tiger and Uka Uka, which is very interesting. But yeah, I mean, if Fred Tatasciore is, I'm sure I'm butchering that name completely, but I mean, if he's in all these things and everyone says he's really good, then I'm sure he's going to be a great Dingodile and Koala Kong and Komodo Mo and all these other characters. The only ones I am, well, in fact, I'm not too upset about them not having Michael N.Sane as Entropy, because Corey Burton was a good enough Entropy. It's just Corey Burton didn't sell me on his engine, and it's a shame that they're not having Nolan North as N.Gin, because that would have been so good. Like, I mean, you can have Corey Burton or you can have Michael N.Sane as Entropy, and it still kind of gives off the same thing, but Nolan North gave such a unique take on N.Gin that I don't think, I just think that it would have been so good if they brought him back. But I'm sure there's a reason they didn't, because it must be because he was just doing something else and he didn't have the time to do it, because Nolan North does a lot, I'm sure he does. But it can't be because of the fact that they didn't think that his voice would suit the old version of N.Gin, because they've got John DiMaggio as Uka Uka and they've got Maurice LaMarche as N.Brio doing the old versions of Uka Uka and N.Brio. So it can't be for that reason, because I'm sure Nolan North could do a good version of N.Gin, even if it's not the same version of N.Gin that he already played. Even if it was doing the old version of N.Gin, I'm sure he could still pull it off perfectly. So yeah, that's really the only one I'm disappointed by, but all the others sound good, and I really like that they're giving characters that didn't talk at all some dialogue, even if it's just like a few noises, it will just give them a bit more of a personality, a bit more character. Because, to be honest, I think in Crash 1 especially, like if you take Koala Kong for example, I know nothing about Koala Kong. I have no idea what his voice is like. I have no idea what his personality is like. He gives off nothing. But if they can give him a good voice, then maybe they can make him into a more interesting character. Same for like the other characters. I mean, Ripperoo was different because Ripperoo had his own thing. Ripperoo appeared multiple times, and the Komodo brothers appeared again in Crash Team Racing, and they gave off. They had their own voice then, and even Pinstripe seemed to have more personality. For characters like Koala Kong, like he just appeared that one time. He did a very short boss where he just threw boulders, and that was it. He didn't make a noise. He didn't give off anything. So it'll be good to see what they do with that. But ultimately, I'm just very excited to see all of this. I won't be able to play it when it comes out. Unfortunately, I don't have a PS4, and I'm not planning to get one anytime soon. But I'm hoping that it will deliver on everything, on all fronts. I'm really looking forward to it now, honestly. It wasn't too much before. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, cool. They're remaking games that I've already played, but just with better graphics. Because, you know, ultimately, that's kind of my opinion on games. Like, graphics don't make a game. Games are constantly improving their graphics, when I think they just should be improving their everything else. Because I still would consider like the original Crash and Spyro to be really, really great games, despite the fact that if you compare the graphics, they're pretty bad compared to nowadays graphics. But I think in terms of the games, they're still really good and they still really hold up. And I suppose that's kind of forced out the opinion that new graphics are not always good in my brain. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. I'm just looking forward to the N.Sane Trilogy, and I'm looking forward to what they do after the N.Sane Trilogy. And I'm hoping to get that Crash Bandicoot video out sometime over the next month, so that would be good. So yeah, I suppose before I end this, I might as well just talk about some of the things that got planned, if I haven't already. I'm currently working on, in fact, by the time you listen to this, it will probably be finished. I'm doing an entry for Emplemon's Shrek collab. Unfortunately, I haven't given myself that much time to do it, because pretty much all of last month I was working on the Tuffy animation that I for my mum for Mother's Day. Oh, by the way, did you all have a good Mother's Day? If you're a mother or you have a mother, I hope you had a good day last Mother's Day, last Sunday. Oh wait, no, actually, the Mother's Day is different in America, isn't it? Well, for those of you who celebrated Mother's Day last Sunday, I hope you had a nice Mother's Day. For those of you whose Mother's Day isn't yet, then I hope you have a good Mother's Day whenever it is. I have no idea when it is, when your Mother's Day is. But yeah, I was working on that pretty much all of last month, so I didn't have any time to do anything else. So I've only really given myself a week to do this Shrek collab entry, because the deadline is tomorrow. In fact, by the time you're listening to this, deadline is April 2nd. Hopefully by the time you're listening to this, it will be done, but I'm working on it right now. In fact, I've got it kind of open in the background while I'm recording this. So I'm hoping to get that done hopefully either by today or by tomorrow. Probably not by today, but by tomorrow I'll hopefully have got that video done. And then after that, I'm going to be working on that Crash Bandicoot video I said about. And then after that, I don't know. It depends on what else. It depends on something else that's going on in my life, whether the next few things happen. But I am probably going to put out the first episode of Little Big Planet PSP, because that's going to be an interesting pilot episode, because basically, since it was the first episode, and obviously I didn't have any requests because nobody knew about it, so I decided to put a tweet out on Twitter, and I got nothing. I got nothing from no one. And so basically I've just got an hour-long video of me moping about complaining that none of my Twitter followers replied to me. So I'm hoping to make that into a funny little vid. But yeah, ultimately that's basically what that series is going to be. You guys can give me requests for things to make in Little Big Planet, and then I will make them. But the first episode, the pilot episode, will not be that. The first episode will just be me doing some random stuff and moping about going a bit insane because nobody likes me and everyone was ignoring me on Twitter. So I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk for it's been nearly about an hour actually of this recording. I'll probably cut it down. So thanks for listening, and I will see you. I'm not sure when I'll see you next actually, because next week is the Easter holidays. It's the Easter holidays, so I don't know if I'm going to have much time to record anything, and I'm not going to have much time to make anything either, because I'll basically be working on one video. You know, it's weird because like I spent the entire last month working really hard on one video, and then as soon as that video ended, I've been working really hard on this Shrek video, and it's like I haven't really had any time to kind of differ from that yet. And I know I've said before that you know, I don't like having deadlines for things, but ultimately they do make me just get on and work on things, and I like being busy. I like having this stuff to do, because once this Shrek collab is done, I'm probably gonna just kind of lay back a bit and think, okay, well, what am I gonna do next? But I shouldn't do that. I should just think, okay, well, let's just get working straight on the Crash Bandicoot video. So anyway, yeah, so I don't know what you can expect next from this channel, because it ultimately depends on when N.Lemon finishes the Shrek collab. I'm assuming it's going to be a while before he's actually put the whole collab together, and you won't see my entry until the collab is out. So I'm probably going to have a number of videos out, or maybe I'll probably have at least one video out before then, and it may be the Crash Bandicoot video, so I guess you can look forward to that. So thank you all so much for listening. This has been quite a long one now. It's been officially an hour in recording. So thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next video, whatever it may be. It could be